And yes, for those of you looking at the screen and going, God, that's unlevel as hell, you are correct. I am unlevel as hell. We are sitting in the North LTVA in Quartzsite, Arizona. It is late January 2026. This is the first video where I've been on screen for probably 6 years, I'm guessing. Maybe 7. Hell, I don't know. I don't even care right now. Lots changed. Typically not in a good way, but that wouldn't be me if it was in a good way. Let's see, where do I want to start? Typically from the beginning. Our original plan was to hit the road in this beast, which obviously we still are. I shouldn't say we. I still am. We left India, or the plan was to leave Indiana with a 01 Chevy Express cargo van. When I looked at the van, before I drove to drive it, I contacted the salesman, asked him what the tow capacity was on that trailer. He said up to 10,000 pounds. So we went and looked at it. Everything was in great shape. It was I think it was a 15-passenger van, V8, 3500. So everything said, yes, it should be capable of towing this thing. Now, granted, at the time, I wasn't expecting for this thing to get as heavy as it ended up being. But come to find out, the van that I bought could only tow 5,500 pounds. So that's a warning to all of you who talk to a salesman about things like that. Don't fucking believe them. They don't know shit. They're morons. Always do your own research. Contact probably a Chevy dealership, probably in the maintenance department. They might be able to get that information through the VIN. I don't know. But do your own research. Don't believe a fucking salesman. They'll lie just to get you to buy their shit. They don't care. Once you're out the door, they're done with you. So, since that van didn't work, we had to get rid of it and buy a truck last minute. And by last minute, I mean within days of our departure. Everything looked good on paper. Test drove it, everything was good. It was an 01 Chevy Silverado 2500 HD. Towing capacity on it was 10,400, I think, 10,400 pounds. We ended up getting this thing weighed, and it was pushing 10, I think 9,800 pounds. So we were at the high limit of what that truck could tow. It was only a 300 horsepower motor in 01. It's a good truck overall. We finally loaded up in January 2019 to come to Quartzsite for the winter. We drove back roads in Indiana, state roads, county roads, before we hit the interstate in western Indiana. We were leaving between winter storms. The way Indiana's winters go, temperatures fluctuate 20, 30 degrees. multiple times in a week's time, and this was one of those instances. We left when it was warm, roads were clear, dry, we just wanted to get somewhere south and west to avoid the next winter storm coming in. So we hit Interstate 70 west in western Indiana. And I uttered, everything was going just fine, smooth, no issues whatsoever. And I uttered a phrase that I have regretted since that day, and maybe the stupidest thing I've ever said in my life. We got on the interstate, towing 10,000 pounds, and I said, well, let's kick on the cruise control. What's the worst that could happen? Let that sink in for a second. It still pains me to utter those words because I know what hell developed after that. I don't know exactly how many miles we traveled from the point my mouth opened and said that stupid phrase. Couldn't have been more than 10 miles on the interstate. So we were passing a semi with the cruise control on. This shows how much experience I've had towing. I should know, and I certainly know now, never to use cruise control when you're towing something this big, anywhere, any way, any shape, any form. Stupid. We started passing this semi. There was a slight incline in the interstate, and the engine accelerated to maintain the speed. Dropped down into third gear. Sorry, this still... the sheer stupidity still gets me. Third gear didn't do it, second gear didn't do it, so it dropped foot to the floor, acceleration, down to first gear at probably 55 miles an hour, 60 maybe, I don't know. And the motor couldn't handle that. Actually, it wasn't the motor per se, it was the oil pump that couldn't dump oil in fast enough. So, clack, 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 at 5,000 RPM, I don't know. Still haven't passed the semi at this point. Hit the brakes, merge behind the truck, get to the nearest exit, all the while, clack, 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 clack. It had nearly blown the motor, but not quite. I don't know how that fucking happens. We pulled over, checked everything, shut it off as quickly as possible, sat and waited for a relatively short period of time. Restarted the engine, no clack, no nothing, everything sounded fine. Tried to get back on the road, thinking, what the hell was that all about? This also shows my level of knowledge about engines and trucks and the like. Again, within a mile of taking off again, weren't on the highway, never regained the highway. Clack, 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 clack. Pulled over again, shut it down. Knew at this point I had totally fucked shit up. I, of course, set the odometer when we left what used to be home. And we made it a grand total of 99.8 miles away from home before I fucked shit up. We were stuck. The winter storm hit. Temperatures plummeted. We had no heat to speak of. We were lucky enough to find a place to pull over. There was a pizza joint off the interstate. Coverdale, something to that effect is the name of the town. I cannot recall the name of the pizza joint. Super nice people. There was a storage facility behind the restaurant, the pizza joint. They knew the owner, contacted him. He was nice enough to allow us to sit in his storage facility parking lot, basically, until we could get help. As I said, temperatures plummeted. We left in the 50s, and that first night, I believe, got down into the teens. Lots of blankets. They did have another niceness. The owner, he allowed us to run a extension cord into one of his bays so that we could have a little space heater to heat at least enough to sleep. We were stuck there in those circumstances for, I believe, 3 days before we could get a tow. Because, of course, winter storm, people driving off the roads, slipping and sliding everywhere, which is what we were trying to avoid by hurrying to get out of there. So they were in much more dire circumstances than we were. We were safe. We were off the road. Yes, we were freezing, but nobody gives a shit about that. We ended up getting towed back to home. My head just fuming in all ways, shapes, and forms. Most of 2019 was utter shit. Later in 2019, I found a position in a warehouse in Gardner, Montana, north of Yellowstone. I was towing this thing again, different route, warm weather, no issues there. They never could find out what the issue was with the truck. It stopped clacking. I could drive it 60 miles an hour down the roadway, unloaded, not towing, no issues whatsoever. So when I got the job in Gardner, Montana, I hooked up the trailer, started towing away by myself. Got everything, once again, working fine. Got all the way to Iowa. Was heading north on, I think that's Interstate 29, towards Sioux City, or Sioux Falls. I was actually south of Sioux City, Iowa, when The clacking returned, and there was no recovering from this one. I knew at this point no cruise controls, anything like that, so it wasn't an issue like that, just running normally down the road, clacking, basically an explosion. DOA engine. I was towing the trailer and had my four-wheeler in the bed of the truck. I didn't have enough cash on hand to pay for an engine. Ended up having to trade my relatively new four-wheeler, probably worth $6,500, for a used engine that I knew nothing about, no indication as to how many miles there was. Billion auto sales in Sioux City. Don't deal with Billion Auto. They will screw you and take joy in it. If you need further evidence as to how much they knew they were screwing me, that they took that four-wheeler in exchange for exactly the price of the repair in the motor. Now, if it wasn't worth what that amount was, they would have wanted some more compensation. And they knew they screwed me because they didn't give me any cash back either, knowing that the four-wheeler was worth well more than what the repairs cost. But it got done. I ended up driving the rest of the way on a used motor, towing this to Montana, worked the season, came back to Indiana to finally get Patty. This was 2020. We all know what happened in the early months of 2020, worldwide panic. We drove to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I had already set up my residency there. She still had to do it. We did it then. We both got jobs for the summer. Worked until early fall. An unseasonable cold snap in Sioux Falls hit early in September. Or was it? I believe it was September. And we decided, okay, we were going to stay longer, but it's cold. Let's get the hell out of here. Came to Quartzsite. Had a wonderful, it was a perfect winter here. Ironically, we set up just through those bushes over there. I can see the spot that we sat in for those months. We have worked off and on. We did some seasonal work. I decided seasonal work wasn't exactly the most profitable for me. The ironic part is I kind of enjoyed the jobs, actually dealing with people. Hey, speaking of my site, the guy who was sitting in my site is now driving away. I don't know if he's going to empty his tanks or not. Sorry, squirrel. Anyway, I actually enjoyed some of the interactions with people, giving them advice, talking just normal everyday stuff. The jobs themselves were, the management was what I had issues with. So I decided that instead of making $10, maybe $12 an hour in a seasonal job, I would prefer, if I'm going to get screwed by the management, I might as well get screwed making over $20 an hour and make money faster. So I transitioned into working back in factories here and there, working this last job I left in Tulsa. I worked 6 weeks. I made $3,500 and said, okay, that's enough. I then drove the rest of the way here to Quartzsite and decided I was going to spend at least part of my winter here. The other elephant in the room, as you can tell, is that I'm sitting here by myself. Patty and I split. It was my decision. That's about as far as I'll go into that. It's nobody's business but our own. But any videos you see from here on, if you see her in it, it is an old video. I have God knows how many hours of videos and hundreds of little shots of all around the country. Death Valley, Red Rock Canyon, I think that's the name of it, outside of Vegas. We went to Reno. There should be some things there for Lake Tahoe. But I will sprinkle some of those things in here and there. I went through all this time of not recording because of the start of our entire trip. The failure that I maintained and instigated by uttering those words of, oh, what could go wrong? Soured me, I guess is the best way to put it, on sharing anything. I'm not saying that's going to be a drastic change. This may be the only video I put up, and I don't even know that I'll put this up. I've released a couple of my hikes to Bunsen Peak there in Yellowstone National Park. That was the job that I worked at the warehouse. There have been many places we went. Zion, Death Valley was a pleasant surprise. That is an amazingly unusual landscape. We went there obviously in the wintertime. I sure as hell wasn't going in 130-degree temps. It was pleasant, sunny, beautiful, stark landscape. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend it. I couldn't believe that she said she enjoyed it more than Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And I'm not sure I'd disagree or agree. It's amazing. Yellowstone is still my favorite. Grand Teton is amazing. We've seen, I don't want to say a lot, because it's not a lot. We frequented Yellowstone. I don't want to say too much, because I'm about to go back there again for a seasonal job that I'm going to try. Hopefully it works out. But Yellowstone, we've almost done too much. I still have not gone to Glacier. Still have not been to